Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're going to completely reframe a legendary piece of history using some incredibly overlooked evidence. If you're the kind of person who loves, finding those hidden gears that actually turn the wheels of time, well, you are in the exact right place. We're looking at the iconic Maharana Pratap, but we're tossing out the traditional history books for a minute to focus on the actual on-the-ground mechanics of his survival. So get comfortable and let's just dive right in. Section 1. An Untold History. Think about this for a second. What was Maharana Pratap's biggest strength? Honestly, when you picture a legendary king fighting these epic wars, you're probably envisioning, right, an endless sea of soldiers, heavy cavalry, maybe a massive standing army. That's kind of the standard template for historical power. But our source text completely shatters that assumption, and it sets up a pretty fascinating mystery. Now, what's really interesting about this is that our text explicitly states his biggest strength wasn't a traditional army at all. Instead, his ultimate strength actually lay with the indigenous Bhil tribe. Honestly, this is a huge paradigm shift. We've got to take that standard image of a rigid, formal military and completely replace it with the highly localized guerrilla power of the Bhil people. It literally changes everything about how we understand the mechanics of his power.
Section 2. The Struggle of Rajputana.
To really grasp why the Bhils were so absolutely crucial, we have to look at the sheer scale of the desperation back then. The text specifically notes, and I quote, when all of Rajasthan was struggling. That word all is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. The entire region was caught in this profound struggle. We aren't talking about some isolated skirmish here. When a whole region is locked in conflict like that, standard supply lines just collapse. Formal military structures, totally neutralized. It perfectly establishes the absolute total isolation that Maharana Pratap was facing. Total isolation requires unconventional lifelines. Seriously, put yourself in those shoes for a minute. Imagine the immense pressure of that situation. You're a leader in a struggling region, and literally all your traditional backup is just gone. You are completely cut off. In a scenario like that, you just can't rely on conventional warfare anymore. You need a lifeline that operates completely outside the broken mainstream system. You need allies who understand the landscape in a way that, well, conventional armies just don't.
Section 3. The Secret Contribution of Bhils.
Okay, let's dive into this because the source gives us the exact tactical lifelines that kept this resistance breathing. First up, hiding safely within the dense forests, basically mastering off-the-grid guerrilla survival. Second, acting as a totally invisible supply chain to deliver vital food when standard granaries completely failed. And, in a war of attrition, sustenance is literally everything. Then third, and maybe the biggest game changer of them all, navigating these undocumented, secret routes to move resources around without being detected. And this brilliantly illustrates the real power of those secret routes. We're not talking about paved roads drawn on some general's map here. These were undocumented, hidden paths that were deeply ingrained in the generational memory of the Bhil tribe. By guiding Maharana Pratap and moving supplies through these covert channels, the Bhils allowed the resistance to completely outmaneuver the threats that had literally paralyzed the rest of Rajputana. For them, the forest wasn't just a place to hide, right? It was this dynamic, navigable network, and the Bhils were the only ones who had the keys to it. The true power behind the legend belonged to the shadows of the forest. Based on what we've unpacked from the source text today, we really have to profoundly reconsider how we measure historical strength. The mainstream narrative always favors the gleaming armor of a traditional army, sure, but the hidden truth, the actual mechanism of survival during that immense struggle was the indigenous Bhil people. They brought the food, they controlled the secret routes, and without a doubt, they were the true backbone of the resistance. Which really begs the question, how many other legendary historical figures owe their entire legacy to overlooked, hidden allies operating quietly in the shadows? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on today's Explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.